Welcome to Fairy Tale Access, where the head fairy's quest is to prove that fairy tales do exist in actual time rather than once upon a time. Together, we will unravel the heroes, young and old, who turn dreams into reality. These are the people who still believe in happily ever after. The discoveries will bend even our most cynical non-believers into believing in fairy tales. Hi, welcome to Fairy Tale Access. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to one of our new authors, the author of the Vale, Brian Anderson from Alabama. Thanks for joining us this morning. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh,
Real pleasure to be here.
my pleasure. We're so excited about this book. So tell us how you got the idea for the Vale and this
Well,
land built on a lot of lies.
I really enjoy playing RPGs like Final Fantasy, Tales of, and if you're into that kind of thing, you'll know the games I'm talking about. And I was completely unaware at the time that there was an actual thing called lit RPG. And so, but I thought in my mind, wouldn't it be great if you take all these character types and these different tropes that you see over and over again in within these games and put it in a novelized setting. So that's kind of what I did. And it's all in an original world. It's not based after any of the games that you might have played, but it's based on those character types and that type of world building. Now, unlike lit RPG, it's not like playing a game. You don't level up or anything like they do in those kind of books. It's literally like a novelized version of a game. And those games, they have great stories. Especially Final Fantasy X is my favorite. So I was like, you know, I kind of got the idea after playing that game. I'm like, man, this would have made a great novel. So that's how it happened.
So you let your imagination run wild. You can see the different levels in this story, though. The way that you have the caste system set up, the way that the lies are hidden within this whole world. It's pretty interesting.
Well, that's the way a game kind of unfolds, where like every time you think you have something figured out, a whole new chapter of it opens up. And I wanted to layer the plot that way, and I thought it'd be a lot of fun for the reader. Something I'd never done before. My previous novels have been a very traditional fantasy, so I wanted to do something a little different. And I figured that, if instead of reinventing the wheel, why not take something that I already enjoy and make something new out of it?
That's awesome. What's your background? Have you always been a writer?
No, I was a car salesman before I did this, and I was a professional musician for many years. I started selling cars when the bottom dropped out of the music industry. But I always, through college, through high school, I always enjoyed writing. I always had a kind of a flair for it, and my wife had encouraged me to pursue it in a more serious way. And honestly, I hadn't. I never could see myself as doing it for a living. It wasn't until I'll do more for therapeutic purposes, writing little short stories, but I never really had the patience for a full-length novel. It wasn't until my son, who is 16 now, but he was 7 years old at the time, came in while I was writing, excited, and just like a son wants to be part of what his father does, he said, "Hey, Dad, I got an idea for a story." And what he told me, I was so impressed by. I just couldn't believe it was coming out of the mouth of a 7-year-old. And he said, "Dad, would you write this?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll write it." I changed it up a bit, and had to, because it had to make it a little. It wasn't going to be a children's book. It was going to be more young adult. But that's what turned into the Godling Chronicles, and that's what launched my career. And here I am now. I just signed a 3-book deal with Tor 8 years later. And it's been a really interesting ride from those humble beginnings to now.
Wow. So you started off as an indie writer then?
Yeah, I've published about, I think, 16 indie novels. There's the Godling Chronicles. There's Dragon Vein. Dragon Vein, I'm really proud of, mainly because book one was nominated in 2015 as a top five finalist for audiobook of the year. And then I have Akiri. That's sort of a Conan-esque, but not as misogynistic. Kind of a modern day Conan type character. And I co-authored with a brilliant writer named Stephen Saville, who wrote like Glass Town. He's written for the Warhammer series and a bunch of other different series. And then there was The Veil, of course. And now I have, in January of 2020, I have a new series called The Sorcerer's Song coming out. And that, like I said, that's the one that's going to be published by Tor Macmillan. So yeah, but I started out from indie going all the way up to doing traditional work now. So it's been one interesting journey from, you got to understand, back in the early days of indie, there was no resources. It wasn't like it is today, where you have like places where you can get cover art and editors and things like that. There was literally nothing out there. We pretty much invented the authors who started around 2010, 2012. We sort of invented this industry the way it is now. That's changed a lot, and it's developed, and there's some great new talent coming out there. But starting out back in those days, it was tough. It was really tough. I had to search through different websites just to find a cover artist. Finding an editor was tough. Nowadays, you have editors leaving traditional publishing because they can make more money working for independent authors. And it's just been seeing this industry grow from the perspective of an industry. Indie has been amazing.
Wow. What was it like to collaborate? Because usually writers are pretty solo in their careers.
It was not easy, I have to say, because, Stephen and I are both creative types, and we both have our ideas. So what we ended up doing is not stepping into each other's way. And he would, on one book, he would do the main draft, then I'd come behind him. And in another book, I'd do the main draft, and he'd come behind me. And we'd make some changes, but we'd pretty much leave each other's stories alone and sort of do more of an amalgamation of our two writing styles more than our two plot points. So we would discuss plot ideas, but whoever was doing the primary writing for the book, that was the one who got the final say. So I think it was a good way to do a collaboration without necessarily stepping on one another's toes, without getting in one another's way, and without getting angry with each other. Frankly,
definitely. So, but you wrote separately.
Well, the Akiri novels, we wrote separately. And the first one I'd already had written, but I thought it needed something. Mm-hmm. And so I approached Stephen with the idea of writing it together. And me and him knew each other from some online groups. There's some great online groups out there with all sorts of writers' resources. And that's another thing that wasn't around back in those days. You had to figure it out. There was nobody to give you any advice. And I really respected Stephen's writing especially from his Warhammer days. And he'd written for Doctor Who, the novelized Doctor Who series. He'd done a lot of work in that in that genre. And so he seemed at the time was kind of looking to get back into doing some indie work. So I thought it was a good time to approach him, and he was up for it. And I got to say, it was different than I expected. I expected it to be a battle, and it wasn't. He's a brilliant man. Every time he would come up with something, I would just say, "Yeah, sounds good to me." And I would just go back and blend our writing styles together, so it didn't come off so you wouldn't be able to tell which one of us was doing the actual writing. Mm-hmm. So that was actually a lot more fun than I thought it would be. Taking somebody else's style and sort of bending it to mine.
That is awesome.
But it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Sounds like it. So what about the deal with Tor McMillan? How did that come
Oh,
about? And
well,
was it a surprise? Was it something that you were seeking out, like sending manuscripts?
yeah,
Or
it took me 8 years to become an overnight success. I had my agent, Lori McLean over at Fuse Literary. I've been working with her. I was introduced to her by a brilliant writer named Michael J. Sullivan. If you're a fantasy fan, you've definitely heard of Michael. Um, he introduced me to Lori, and Lori read my work. Um, the way she tells it now, she thought she could see the potential in it. I don't necessarily think she was a huge fan right at first, but she believed that I would sort of grow into myself, and I did. However, the first series she tried to sell, Dragon Vein, nobody was interested. Nobody would touch it. Nobody was like, just it wasn't the right place, the right time. So I went independent with that one. Same with Akiri, and I was sure Akiri was going to hit. Now Vale, that was a different story. Fast forward about 5 years of us trying and failing. Um, Vale Audible.com picked up the audio rights to Vale first, which we knew would probably kill our chances with the big five publishers. So right now there's this big rights war going on between the audio publishers and the main publishers, and it's a big corporate thing that I don't fully understand. But we'd already sold the deal that Audible gave me was so attractive I couldn't turn it down. And but we figured we'll try anyway. Let's, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So we sent it off to Davy Pillai over at Tor, as she was the senior editor over there, and she'd worked with Brent Weeks and worked with a lot of people. Very, very well known in the industry. I know she's won a bunch of awards. Anyway, she read Vale, really liked it, but unfortunately couldn't make an offer on it because of the audio rights, because I'd already sold those. And the only offer she could make would be with audio rights included, and I couldn't offer that. But she said, you know what? We'd love first look at the next thing you have out. Now, backing up a few 6 months, I was entering this contest, which I'll touch on at some point, called Spiffbo, a self-published fantasy blog off that was invented by a writer named Mark Lawrence. He has a brand new book out, I think it's called Holy Sister. Anyway, I had just had a book entered in that, so I was sort of keeping up with stuff in this within it. And one of Mark's Uber fans had a flash fiction contest going on. So I'd never done that. I just finished releasing. I think I just finished releasing one of the sequels to the Goblin Chronicles. And I was kind of worn out. I figured I've never tried flash fiction. It might be fun. Well, I failed completely. But the idea that it spawned turned into the idea for a complete series. By the time I was finished with this little 300 words, I was kind of inspired. And so I wrote about like 3 or 4 chapters. I think I had 20, 30,000 words of it. And I had a synopsis. Sent it to my agent. Lori, I don't know if she read it or not, but she said she didn't really care for it, that, keep working on, this other stuff. And I think she was just didn't want me distracted and you didn't want me, going off on a tangent, which, God, you can't, I never do. But so I said, hey, Lori, I still got this. I still got the Bard's Blade, and I still have it in my, on a file. She goes, well, send a synopsis. Let me look at it again. Okay, second look at it. She loves it. So we send it over to Davy, and Davy looks at it and says, I really like it, but looking at the synopsis, this world is too complex for me to give you an answer on the strength of a sample. So I need a full manuscript. So I'm like, all right. So I shove everything aside and I bang out the full manuscript.
How long did that
It takes
take?
me about 8. It took me. It didn't take me all that long. About 8 weeks. I really worked hard on it. I was like working like 8-10 hours a day trying to get it finished. And again, got a friend of mine to briefly edit it, just edit it for for punctuation. Do a quick line edit, clean it up a little bit, and send it over. And unfortunately, Davey had been promoted to editing manager or managing editor or whatever. She was no longer working directly with authors. So I was thinking I missed my shot. But she handed me over to a woman named Lindsay Hall, who she had brought over from Orbit Books when she moved over. And Lindsay had worked with Nicholas Eames and several other very popular authors. She had a great name in the industry, but didn't know her, so I was kind of worried. Now, this whole submission process typically takes about anywhere from a month, 3 months, sometimes longer. We send it to them on a Friday. On Monday, they said they were interested. We had a deal memo by Wednesday.
Wow, you must have been excited.
I was. Now this is Tor. I mean, you got to understand. When I was a kid, all the sci-fi and fantasy I read either came from Del Rey, from Ballantine, or from Tor. For me to be signed with Tor was like like going to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. It was a dream come true. It was just amazing. Not only that, but what scared me is I was afraid that when they said they were interested, I was afraid that they'd try to lowball me or make it to where I couldn't sign the deal because it just wasn't enough. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So financially, it's got to make sense for me to do it because I have to put other things on hold that could be generating income for me.
Exactly.
And so but they gave me to the nickel so it was just like the stars lined up, everything fell into place, the book gods were on my side. And then come to find out, I get to know Lindsay Hall. She has been one of the best things that's happened to me as a writer. And I got to say, the going in traditional was a bit of a shock, because you relinquish a lot of control.
Right.
You don't have the final say in everything. Now there's a committee. Now I have a Lindsay Hall to tell me, nope, you can't do that. But she ends up, it was the best thing that happened to me. It opened my eyes to certain things I wasn't doing in my writing that I needed to be doing. The things that they asked me to change about the story that I was reluctant to do, that I resisted. Once it was done, it did wonders for the overall. It turned what she did was help me turn a good book into a great book. And I couldn't be happier with her as my editor. I couldn't be happier with Tor. And they're encouraging me to keep doing indie. So they want me to keep doing stuff like The Veil. They want me to keep doing things like that. So the industry is also changing that way. That traditional used to just shun indie completely. Now they're starting to come around and say, hey, these indie authors, they're popular for a reason. We need to get on board with that. And Tor's actually encouraging me to continue with my indie career while at the same time working with them.
Great. Some quick questions. So the series that you're going to be doing with Macmillan, what's the name of it?
The series is called The Sorcerer's Song. Book one. Song? Yep, book one comes out January 28th next year, and it's called The Bard's Blade. Book two, I think, comes out in April. It's written. It's about to go through editing. It's called A Chorus of Fire. And I'm not sure of the title of book three. I haven't started that one yet. But it should be coming out. I think they're going to space them out about 6 months apart. In the meantime, I'll be finishing the second book of the Godling Chronicles series, the third book of Vale, and the fourth book in the Akiri series.
How do you keep track? Wow.
I tell you, somebody cut me off on the interstate the other day, and I tried to cast a spell at him. I mean, it gets to your head a little bit sometimes.
I bet. There's not a lot of magic in the Vale.
Well, I've tried to make, especially with the Veil, I wanted it to be very character driven. I like to develop my characters. I don't want, you know how you go to a movie and it's all about the special effects, and even though it's a fun movie to watch, you feel like there's something missing because you never really connected with anything. I don't like that I don't like my readers to have that experience with my books. I mean, so yes, there's magic, but it's not about magic. Right. Yes, there's these are elements. It's occasionally I've given some lectures on character development and story structure. And one of the things I ask people is, okay, tell me what Star Wars is about. And almost invariably, you'll get one or two people that will say lightsabers or something like that. But almost 9 times out of 10, somebody will say Luke Skywalker. When you ask, what is Lord of the Rings about? It's about Frodo. It's not about the ring. It's not about the wizards. It's not about the magic. It's not about the lightsabers or the lightning hands or any of that. It's about the characters.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just a bunch of special effects. And what I effort to do is to create characters that even the ones you don't like, that there's something about them that you can relate to within yourself. Because I think that's true, especially with villains, because there are dark sides of us that we don't like about ourselves, but it's kind of fun to explore when we read read a villain in a novel. And another thing that I try to do, if you've noticed with the female characters, I don't masculinize, I guess, that my female characters. I believe in giving a female character strength through femininity, not, because I don't like it when masculinity is equated to strength.
Right.
I don't think that's genuine. I have a lot of female fans, and I think one of the reasons they are my fans is because when I write a female character, she can be strong and feminine at the same time, and rather than giving a female character masculine traits, which I think is disingenuous, I think is a shortcut, and I think it's absolutely wrong to do. There's nothing weak about femininity.
Right. No, you did a good job. And it's Drake, right, that has this addiction to some juice in the story. Where did that come from?
Oh, yeah, Drake, yeah. The dark hero. You see him in almost every RPG there is. And even Lynx is my favorite character. That has the little sprightly little thief. And Bane, I love Bane a lot because you don't know whose side Bane's on yet.
I know. There's a couple characters you're not sure where they really stand, which makes it an interesting read because you see that the way that things twist and turn, and you can relate it to real world things that go on.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. It was it's been so much fun. I'm going to be wrapping it up, and I'm going to kind of miss that world. I don't know. I may have to return to it one day.
Definitely. That must be hard as an author because you kind of live in that world with them, or they live in your head.
Oh, yes. It can be difficult, especially when you got to kill somebody off. You invest so much time and so much effort into building this world, building these characters, and for every page of text that you're reading, sometimes hours can go into thinking how that page is laid out. It may take the reader 15 seconds to read it, 30 seconds, however long it takes them, but it may have taken that particular author all day to figure out how to do that. And you live with these characters in a way that you don't live with your friends and family, and because you are actually in a way, they're father and mother and brother and sister. You're everything, even the bad ones. And and yeah, when you have to leave that world, leave those characters, it can be. I actually, when I wrote the last page of the Godling Chronicles, my first series, I cried. When I wrote the
Oh,
end, I did. Yeah, that was over 3 years of my life.
wow.
Yeah, it's a 6-book series, and it's writing the end for that. And I ended up coming back to it with a sequel, but that was more because I was getting a lot of pressure from the fans who wanted me to approach that again and revisit that world. And I needed to. I waited. I waited about 4 years to do it, but I wanted to have enough space to where could approach it with fresh eyes instead of like rewriting the same book. But yeah,
Wow.
there's so much is invested, and it's little wonder some writers go insane.
Right? Well, thank you for sharing so much about what you do and the way that you write these amazing books, because there are little secrets all along the way and you're anticipating what happens and you draw us into the story, and when some of our conclusions come true, it's like, yes, yes.
You figured it out.
I know, it's just like, wow, it's a really thrilling read. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I'm glad you did. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. You have a great day, and we'll look forward to every single book that you're writing.
Ah, yes, buy them all. Buy them all. I'll buy them all twice.
Thanks. And until next time, keep asking questions. And if you want a really good series to start on, The Vale definitely will intrigue you. Take care.